All right, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. It is Wednesday. It's 1 o'clock, so we're going to just buzz through a whole lot as we can. Locals, you have the Iowa voter analysis up on the site, so check it out and kind of roll along with us while we do this. All right, so look, it's becoming a little bit like petty now. Every time we go to do this, there's like some kind of like brute force or heavy traffic on it. It's a futile effort. I mean, we pull millions and millions and millions and millions of records each year. They're going to cater to our high volume and they're just going to give us more resources. So you can bust our chops for 24 hours or 48 hours like you've been. And at the end of the day, I'm going to get it and it's just going to be back up anyway. So you're prolonging the inevitable. But no one's going to drop us with that kind of volume. So nice try. Secondly, the California Republican Party, a little update here. On Friday, we're going to have David Gilligo, to discuss more about this because I know he'll get more information by the time Friday comes. But today, just a real quick update before we get into Iowa. Today, they had their call with the Central Valley chairs. And let me get a direct quote here. Let me get a direct quote. That basically, they're still proposing to remove the winner-take-all threshold to split district delegates and give the at-large proportionally. So basically, Jessica Patterson's original proposal, which would be an outright, California would be one of the only states to move from a hybrid to a proportional system in I don't even know how long. It's been a long time. Most states have moved away from proportionality into either the hybrid or winner take all. So winner take most or winner take all. But almost everybody takes advantage of rules 3.1 and 3.2 that the National Republican Party gives to the state parties to give them wide latitude for rules changes. This rule change is designed to give either, if it's DeSantis, if it's not, he completely collapses by the time we get to voting, whomever the runner-up candidate is that is not named Donald Trump, and I quote, "We need to make it more fair for the other candidates because it's Super Tuesday." In other words, March 5th, there's a long way to go between March 5th and March 19th. So you simply cannot, if you don't want Trump to win the nomination, which Jessica Patterson does not, and most of the California Republican Party does not, you cannot have Trump win Tennessee, Texas, clobber North Carolina, but Tennessee and Texas have winner-all provisions. You cannot have him with 162 delegates in Texas and 78 delegates in North Carolina and 58 in Tennessee, or 75 in North Carolina, 58 in Tennessee. You cannot have him also trigger a winner-take-all threshold rule in California because it's over. The only narrative win you can hope to get is if you proportionately allocate the delegates in California, so much so that even if, let's just look at the average of polling right now. Let's say Trump was to win California like 55-20, right? What one of the latest polls was. It would still mean the runner-up, whoever gets that 20%, would get about half as many delegates as Donald Trump. So it would help to dilute the delegate count, as we talked about a lot, and it would prevent him from just sweeping the big delegate states between South Carolina and then all of those that are on March 5th, all 15 of them. All right, so all of 2, Alaska and Virginia, are all winner take most, and Trump is polling, since so many are in the South, Trump is polling at levels right now that would trigger most of their winner take alls. All right, some of them have 2/3 threshold, so the runner-ups are going to get some delegates. There's no doubt, but he's going to clobber at this point with these polling numbers. So you have to have some kind of narrative win. So for all of the talk about, we're going to fix it, and there was a misunderstanding, ultimately this does come down to Donald Trump's own campaign having people at the helm. I'm not going to, like Barnes said on Monday, they're either incompetent or they're, attempting to screw him over. I don't really know. I'm saying it's at the very least total incompetence, because even 2 months ago, if you thought Ron DeSantis was going to run away with the state of California, that you wanted proportional allocation, then you're not a good advisor, and you should not be advising a former and perhaps future president. And it's really what it comes down to for me. And, for the Trump campaign, his voters who we speak to on a daily basis, who stick with him through thick and thin. Look, this is what people seem to not understand about me. Yeah, I give it to everyone who deserves it. And in this case, the Trump campaign deserves it. You owe it to your voters to make sure that you have smarter people. All right. I mean, these are people who pretend to be delegate math experts and apparently have no idea what in Sam hell they're doing. All right. So, I mean, what were you doing at that current time? If what I'm hearing is true, what were you doing? Looking at Predict It? Did you get your information from Predict It? Is that where you got that from? Is that the full scale of your breathless and super intelligent political analysis? Presidential campaigns need to be smarter than that, because I'll tell you right now, maybe Jeff Rowe can't connect with voters and he doesn't run campaigns that connects with voters, but he's not an idiot. When it comes to delegate math, him, Ken Cuccinelli, they've tried this before. If you don't think they're going to try it again, then I don't know what rock you've been under for the last 6 years. Of course they're going to. All right? And they might as well. They're getting $35 million to do it. All right? So, all right, let's take a look at what we found in Iowa. I don't want to spend too much more on that. We'll talk more about that on Friday. And we don't have a whole lot of time today because of everything that's going on. So I'll show you, we are having some issues, and I'm not the only one. I think when this happens to other, see, it didn't update. I was really hoping that some of these weights would update. We have very basic weights that we're able to go through, and unfortunately, it's not done. But I can show you by geography on the map what you can expect from this, and then also that will, of course, we use a technique called rake weighting on most of our surveys, which basically adjusts some other variables. So you don't need to weight. Everyone's got a different opinion. And I'm not saying if somebody weights by party, they're inherently wrong. It's just not what we like to do unless, we're really, I mean, if you don't have to do it, you should not do it. That's our opinion. But other rake weighting and weighting for other variables should adjust your party ID. So if you weight by area and region, then obviously if you're, too urban of an area, and you're weighting more towards suburban, rural areas, and don't do it by self-identification because people don't know where they live. You can ask somebody if they live in an urban, rural, or suburban area. And believe me, they don't always know what the best answer is to that. So you have to do it a little bit more sophisticated. But ultimately, if you do that, it will change, for instance, the ideological composition of the sample. It'll change the party makeup of the sample. So that's what we like to do. On those of you who have been following us for a while and have seen us do this, then So I'm telling you, when I'm going to show you this map, I'm telling you that the geography weights that have not been applied yet are going to benefit Trump somewhat. Now, I don't think it'll benefit him all that much more, but it will benefit him. So when we're looking at what I'm going to show you in a second here, keep that in mind. All right. So we'll look through area, we'll look through income, and then you'll see what I'm talking about, generally speaking. Okay. So let's do this, try to update it. And while we're attempting to update it, let's look at the map. All right. And then here we go. Boom. All right. So here's the map from Data Wrapper. I did put it so that you can click on the group as well. And when you do, let me just show you what happens. When you click on the groups, for instance, let's go to Des Moines. When you click on the group, it does not mean that Trump is ahead by 62% here. All right, what it means is there are 62 interviews. It's obviously a big and deep red, which is Trump's color is red. DeSantis is blue. We're trying to stay consistent here through all of our polling. When you click on it, you'll see a black band around it, and you can see all choices that were picked by people. And obviously, if you wanted to count them all, you would see that Donald Trump has a very healthy lead in the Des Moines area in Iowa. All right. Same thing with Davenport, by the way, for instance. Let's do Davenport. Obviously, you can see Vivek's got a couple. There were a couple of people we interviewed here who picked Vivek, but that most of them, of course, were Donald Trump. Cedar Rapids, same thing. So in these big areas, Waterloo and the Sioux City area, all of this out here is Western, outside of the Des Moines area, which is 5-county area. Outside of Des Moines media market, you have Western Iowa, which is heavily evangelical. And you'll see here, obviously, that look, the Iowa caucuses are changing, but it used to be that you would have a more moderate candidate winning some of the eastern cities, right? And definitely Iowa City. You can actually see that Tim Scott is battling with Ron DeSantis in Iowa City. So you actually don't have a place where DeSantis is super, super dominant in Ames. He's got some support in Ames, but you can see they're basically running pretty close outside of Ames. There's another one for Ron DeSantis. That was a first-time caucus goer. Trump has some really, and this is why I'm really pissed about the issue we're having right now with the crosstabs, because there's some really super strong things that I do see for Trump here. One is, normally you have a more moderate candidate doing better in the eastern cities. And then the conservative candidate is romping it with evangelicals in western Iowa. And then they fight it out in like north of Ames and stuff, right? That's not what you're seeing here. You are seeing pockets of support for some of these other candidates. And there's some right now central where Ames is. DeSantis has pockets of support without a doubt. In Iowa City, he does as well. And then outside of Iowa City, DeSantis's support is professional class, government workers, and more educated. All right. Not even 4-year, because as you'll see, Trump is actually, well, I don't know if you will see, you'll see soon when it's done and fixed and out. But Trump is actually carrying voters who have a 4-year college degree. DeSantis leads just by a hair with those who have a postgraduate degree. And honestly, you could see if you look at past entrance polls, they have, even in a Republican caucus, postgrads, advanced degrees have made up, 15 to 18% of the caucus electorate. However, it's dominated by people who do not or have some college, and where we're seeing those leads, they're just they're massive for Donald Trump. And again, even the 4-year degree is going for Trump. It's only the post-grad that is not. The non-college caucus going vote is literally 2/3 for Donald Trump and about 14% for Ron DeSantis. It's a wipeout. If you look by income, which we're going to do here in a second, you'll see that, folks, in the last general election, people who made less than 15,000 were less than 30,000 were 15% of the Iowa electorate. Another quarter made 30 to 50. Another 35% made 50 to 100. 200,000 or more is like 5%. And I believe in 2016, it was even less, 2 or 3%. Not enough data to even show responses on who carried that income demographic. That's how little it is there. All right. So when we're looking at a Republican caucus, obviously it's going to be even more working class. You look at the 30 to 50,000 category. Trump is in the 60s. Ron DeSantis is again at 13.5%, 14%. It is 13.5%. I'm rounding up. Under 30,000, Trump leads 53 to 18. 50 to 100,000, Trump leads 50 to 19. So it's a tough haul there for anybody not named Trump. Trump leads in the urban areas. He leads in the suburban areas, and he leads in the rural areas. There is no area type where he doesn't lead. Ironically, we're finding, maybe this will change, but ironically, we're finding him doing a little bit better in the suburbs at this moment than in the rural areas. But I honestly think that at the end of the day, it's probably likely that those undecideds in the rural areas are going to go to Trump anyway. Because DeSantis is running weaker in rural and urban Iowa than he is running in suburban Iowa. He runs about 5 points stronger in suburban Iowa than he does in urban Iowa. And he runs about 3 points or so, which is not that much off the sampling era. But I'll give you the skinny right now. It's a Trump plus 30. I can tell you that. It's Trump 50, DeSantis 20. And I thought we were being pretty favorable. And it will, like I said, when some of those, look at the areas, right? So when geography, it has weighted correctly, it'll help maybe a little, but I still think it'll be 50-20 rounded in that ballpark. And right now, I'll give you the actual on the dot. It's Trump 50 on the dot and DeSantis 19.19. All right, so Tim Scott comes in third, 7.2. Vivek Ramaswamy, 4.3. Mike Pence, a complete. I told Jack Posobiec this on Human Events Daily yesterday. Some of these campaigns, I just don't see them having any business in running for this office at all. Mike Pence is a 3.8. Nikki Haley is 2.3. Chris Christie is 1.5. I got to tell you, we polled Iowa in 2016. Undecided's about 8%. So you couldn't get all the undecideds and everyone else's vote and beat Donald Trump. You couldn't. People are going to have to change their mind, which is interesting. Hold that thought. I just want to say real quick, we did poll it in 2016, and Marco Rubio kind of looks a little bit like Tim Scott to me. He's polling very low right now. But if anyone is going to come out and be a surprise candidate right now, if the Iowa caucuses were held right now, I think that actually Tim Scott would wind up being that, oh, where'd he come from? Kind of like Marco Rubio did, who did better in eastern cities than people expected. All right, so he wound up, coming up on Trump's rear there. Gray is undecided. We're back to using gray for undecided. All right, and then you can see here, of course, this is where, again, there's some pockets of support outside of Trump, but obviously it's clearly dominated by red. Non-white caucus goers overwhelmingly are going for Donald Trump. Almost nobody has any non-white support. And why does that matter? Because non-white in Iowa at this time could be like upwards of 8% if they really turn out. And most of the times it's not. Most of the time in an Iowa caucus for Republicans, we're talking 95 to 98% white. I think 2016 was 97, but times are changing. Things are changing. Hispanics are far surpassing black voters as, the second largest minority. We're only talking about 5% of the electorate, but it's something. Elections can be won on margins, so every bit counts, obviously. No Republican candidate has any non-white support to measure, to state, to even remark upon, other than Donald Trump. And Trump does carry white voters as well. But let's get back to this idea. You got to change your mind. This is what immediately jumped out. It's a caucus. So trying to pull the caucus will ask, can you be persuaded at the caucus? So you told us who you're going to caucus for. You're going to support the caucus. Can you be persuaded at a caucus or no? Can you, or is your mind made up and that's it? A majority of Trump supporters, their mind is made up and they cannot be persuaded. Meanwhile, about 3 out of 4 of Ron DeSantis' voters can be persuaded to go back to someone else, to include Donald Trump. So it's just a really, really heavy lift for other people. If you have never attended an Iowa caucus before, about 30-something% overall told us that they were going to attend an Iowa caucus for the first time. However, that was heavily, heavily lopsided to the Republican caucuses. Only about 20% of those who indicated they would participate in a Democratic caucus said that it would be their first caucus. For the vast majority of first-time caucus goers are Republicans. And among those, it's a very big lead for the former president. He does lead with people who have, caucus goers who have done it before, that they've been to a caucus before, but his lead with first-time caucus goers is even bigger, which gives him the opportunity. And by the way, we were pretty damn strict this time. So it would give them an opportunity to be in the voter screen. But as you get closer, probably will tighten that screen up a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not, first of all, whether they still go to Trump, and then second, whether or not it'll still be that big of a group. And just to give you, it's just doing its load up thing here. I'll actually read you the difference in caucus goers. Also, real quick, you'll see age is 17 to 20. In the detail, we start with 17 to 24, 25 to 29. If people who know what they're talking about in the state, you'll know what I mean, why we did that. You have time you can register as a 17-year-old if you're going to be 18 by the time the caucus begins. All right. So that's why people are going to say, Rich, why are there 17-year-olds? Well, that's why. Okay. Also, let's see what else. Some weird stuff. Okay. It is a closed contest. But for instance, look at the 2016 entrance polls, and you'll see that in the Republican side, there's like 80% said they were self-identified Republicans. Another, 18% or so said that they were independents. And another 2% or so said that they were Democrats. All right, there goes my son barging in. It's good. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I think so. They can self-identify one way, but be registered by the time the caucus starts, as long as they change their registration within 70 days. And when we could see that they were not registered as a Republican or registered as a Democrat, they were told that, and was still indicated that they would change their registration by the time the caucus kicked off. But again, asking the exit pollster or whoever, or somebody like me, they'll tell you, I consider myself an independent. Okay, but you're registered as a Republican, so you're eligible to participate. All right, no, this will be my first caucus. Again, not a small chunk. Trump takes 56% of first-time caucus goers. DeSantis takes 15.7%. Yes, I've attended a caucus before. Trump takes about 45, almost 46. Actually, it's 46 when you round up. And DeSantis takes 23. Third place candidate on the first time caucus goers, Tim Scott takes 5.6, Mike Pence 3.2, Nikki Haley 1.4. On people who have attended a caucus before, Tim Scott takes 8.5, Mike Pence takes 5.1, Nikki Haley takes 5.6. Or excuse me, actually I blew that. Vivek, I am so sorry. Those were your numbers. Vivek takes 3.2 of first-time caucus goers and 5.1 of those who have attended a caucus before. Sorry about that, Mr. Ramaswamy. Again, where is Vivek's? He is creeping up in some of these, but where is he catching on? Honestly, kind of high-income people. It's just true. High income who consider themselves America first, but don't want to vote for Ron DeSantis and are looking for somebody else other than Trump. He gets 7% of 100 to 200 people who make 100 to 200,000. They're in the suburbs. That's his largest share, 6%. And they're more female than male, 5 versus 3.5. But generally, he needs a bigger, wider, broader appeal before he's going to really. I saw the morning consult poll. I saw he overtook Mike Pence. But in some of these earlier states, if he's going to make a splash, he's got to appeal to a broader sector, a broader section of the public. Even Tim Scott, he only gets 3% with those who make under 30,000, but 30 to 50, he's taking 9, 50 to 100,000, he's taking 7, 100 to 200, 8, 200,000 or more, 8. And by the way, 200,000 or more still goes to Trump, 47 to 19. So when we're thinking about what the hell is the lane here? It's a very narrow lane. 100 to 200,000 is DeSantis's best category. And he takes only 27% there compared to 42% for Donald Trump. But it really does depend not just how much money they make. If they make 100 to 200,000, then what's their education level? So it's not even there's not one demographic where you can say, okay, there's broad support here for a non-Trump candidate, because there's really not. DeSantis gets 17.8% of the urban vote, 22% of the suburban vote, 19.6% of the urban vote, of the rural vote, excuse me. So it's really difficult to see where someone would mount a serious challenge. Check out this map when you get a chance. It's pretty darn cool. You can click on it and scroll down. It'll tell you exactly. If their Republican identity is, we'll ask people if they are Republican and self-identify. We'll ask them, well, tell us, do you identify more as an America First Republican, or do you identify more as a traditional Republican. In the state of Iowa, there are more America First Republicans than there are traditional Republicans. And therein lies the problem for everyone, not named Trump. Obviously, he's winning the America First identifying Republicans, the vast majority of them, but he's actually also winning those who identify as a traditional Republican. It's a smaller margin, but it's still there. Let's see if I can give you some specifics here on if we bear with it. I'm trying to give you like something like the evangelical. That's also very interesting, but this is one state, another state, along with Florida, one of the only, those are the only two, where DeSantis does seem to do a little bit better among women. Or not that he does better with women, because he really doesn't. He does better with men, 23.2% compared to only 15% from women, among women. But Trump is able to be, I don't want to say held down, but 53.7% of men are backing Trump in the Iowa caucuses. 45% of women are. So it would be more accurate to say that Trump's level of support is lower among women in Iowa and Florida, whereas that is not the case anywhere else we've polled. Nationally, Texas, California, various districts, North Carolina, it's just not the case. Women usually have been fueling Donald Trump's lead, and DeSantis does better with men. Well, there seems to have been this shift back to Donald Trump among men, and we'll see if that stays or not. But I tend to think that has a lot to do probably with Ukraine, because they're younger, and then also just pure economic stuff, and this non-white male vote as well that doesn't like these political indictments that are really in Barnes, and I talked at great length about this on Monday. These people kind of feel like he's in the same boat with me now, right? And let me see if I can zoom in and find a good example of a DeSantis supporter, okay? Let's get in here as close as we can and see what we got. Let's try to pick, come on, DeSantis supporters, pop up. All right, so actually, this one's not so much one, but let's read it. Certain to vote, has gone to caucuses before, lives in Iowa City. I can be persuaded to change my mind at the caucus. Again, this does not have firm support. Only about 20% of DeSantis' support is firm, and they at least say right now that their mind cannot be changed. Only about 20%. Very, very different than Donald Trump, who has a big majority who says, I'm not changing my mind. It's not happening. Male, little older, no shocker there, 69, white, Republican, conservative, ideologically, does identify as America First Republican. Some college or an associate degree, 50 to 100,000, is retired, married, is an evangelical, and lives, as they say, in a rural area. All right. Obviously, like I said, not a great idea to believe sometimes what people tell you about where they live, because honestly, it's just not always right. All right, here's another one. This is a great example of a DeSantis voter. Certain to vote, right in Iowa City, right there. Yes, I've attended a caucus. I can be persuaded to change my mind. Maybe to Tim Scott, however, right? Is a female voter, 68, white, Republican, a moderate. Identifies more as a traditional Republican, has a postgraduate advanced degree, makes between $100,000 and $200,000, is retired, still married, is not an evangelical, and lives in a suburban area. That is a pretty indicative vote for Ron. That's a voter that is characteristic of DeSantis' coalition. The unfortunate reality for the DeSantis campaign is that there simply are not enough of those voters. Not in a Republican primary and not in an Iowa caucus. Let's go out west a little bit. Let's take a look out west. And let's look at Trump support. All right. And which I gave a high threshold so it would split stuff up. I know it looks like it's out of Iowa. I just wanted you to be able, if you zoom in, I wanted you to really be able to go through a bunch of them. All right, so here's an America First Republican cannot be persuaded to change their mind. At 65 years old, this will be his first caucus he's ever gone to, and he's absolutely certain to do it. Conservative, America First, high school or GED equivalent, but makes money, good money. This is one of Trump's best voters, 100 to 200,000 range, even sometimes a higher income, but not particularly educated. This is a self-made man or woman. In this case, it's a man, but somebody who did not go, to get a fancy degree and still does well in life. That is a demographic that is one of Trump's best demographics, always has been. That's a key point of his coalition. And you can see with this guy who's he's not a new general election voter, but he is a new caucus voter. The first time he ever really he voted for Trump in 2016, did not caucus in 2016, did not caucus in 2020 because who the hell, even though there was a huge turnout for an incumbent, he didn't do it because, look, why? He's incumbent, he's going to be nominated. Voted in 2020 in a general, but now will vote in a caucus participate is the correct way to say it, in a caucus for the first time. He's retired, he's married, he is an evangelical Christian, although a cultural evangelical Christian, as Barnes and I always refer to them as. And he lives in a suburban area. All right, let me make sure I don't double hit him. Different. Certain to vote, again, first-time caucus goer. They can be persuaded to change your mind. She's a female, 51, white, Caucasian, Republican, conservative, America First, has some college or an associate degree, makes between $50,000 and $100,000, is employed working full-time still, is married, is not evangelical, and lives in suburban western Iowa. Keep going and on and on and on. You get the point. I've attended a caucus. I cannot be persuaded to change my mind. I am certain to vote. I am voting for Donald Trump. I'm a man. I'm 47. I'm Asian. Republican, conservative, America Firster. Some college associate degree, $100,000 to $200,000. Employed, full-time, married, evangelical, living in an urban area. So take a guess, where that is. All right, so on and on and on and on. Honestly, I was a little bit surprised by Trump's strength with evangelicals in western Iowa. I thought that could be one area where it may be a little bit weak for him. But at the end of the day, he's winning evangelicals by 30 points, 50 to 21 or 29, really. Come on. And then if you're not a evangelical, you're still going for Donald Trump, a little over 50 to 19. So 31 points. And just to give you an idea, in 2016, let's see, 45% said this is the first time I'm attending a caucus. We're approaching numbers like that. Trump won them by 7. Cruz won caucus goers who have been to a caucus before. He won them by 8. I know it doesn't really make much sense, especially since it's 54%. But it kind of does. We don't have to get into it. But at that time, white evangelicals made up 62% of all the vote in the Iowa caucuses. 38% were basically everything else. Catholic, maybe just mainstream Protestant or whatever. Cruz won evangelicals by 12. Trump won everyone else by 3. This time, it's Trump plus 30 no matter what. No matter what. And you're looking at a relatively similar split of first-time caucus goers. I was wondering if it was going to be, I don't know, 10% first time. But it's not. Why? Because there was so many people who voted for the first time in 16. New caucus goers, half the damn electorate almost. That's the only reason why Trump had a chance. There's 45% of them had never attended a caucus before. This time, we're approaching levels that are basically the same. The difference, however, is that, are you a first-time caucus goer? Yes, it's still Trump plus 30. Are you not? Are you that traditional conservative that people always think they can outflank certain candidates with? Doesn't matter. It's still Trump plus 30. That was a little bit surprising to me. And that's what it looks like when you see a map like that. And can I bring this up and actually show you this? Some of it I can show. Yeah, I can. Bear with me. Let me pop this up. It may freeze, honestly. It may. If it does, it does. All right. Here we go. This is the back end of what I see. Let's close the editor so you can see it a little bit better. Again, here's first-time caucus goers. No, it's my first. Here's evangelicals, right? I know it's a little small, but let me see. I'll zoom in a little bit. I'm already at 110. This is 125%. And let's actually go to the area and income. Trump's obviously the top row. So you see what is generally a dominating position. When they're in blue like that, it means there's a statistically significant relationship between another column. So 30 to 50, they're saying, whoa, this is big here. One candidate is significantly higher than the rest of these brackets. And at the same time, another candidate is significantly lower. And you can see that there with DeSantis. At the 30 to 50,000 range, DeSantis is doing a lot worse than he's doing with other voters. And why is that a problem? It's a big chunk of the electorate in Iowa. Could be a quarter of them. It's huge. And I will tell you this, we'll have the general election up to DeSantis is underperforming Trump in the state of Iowa by, I'm going to ballpark it for you, it's going to be like 4 or 5 points. It's a significant underperformance. And it's coming from really 18 to 34. Actually, 18 to 39. And that especially younger independents. And then there's a base of the Republican vote who says, I won't vote. If it's not Trump, I just won't vote. And we ask people that as well. See what else I can try to get away with throwing in here without crashing the whole thing. Ooh, let's look at white detail, shall we? I'm going to wind up moving this stuff around. We might as well go back to the map mode. You want to see what I'm dealing with? Wait until you see how long it takes for that to update. See, it's doing this little blue spinning wheel of death. It will update eventually. But let's take a white detail, meaning Danish, Norwegian, English, German. A lot of Germans, like Pennsylvania, a lot of German ethnicity or national origin, really, in Iowa. A lot. Pennsylvania is another one that has a lot of German origins. And then, of course, being that it's so close to Wisconsin, and a lot of it actually looks a lot more like Wisconsin. I would say parts of Wisconsin look a lot more like Iowa than they do Michigan or Pennsylvania. So you do have some of those Scandinavian, I should say. So let's close it. Let's see. Click, click, click. Update, update. It's just the way it's working here. It's just slow as slow can be. Come on. Let's look at ethnicity here, folks. Load it. Let's update. Close it. And let's wait for it. When it does come back, it'll come back all the way over there. But you see what I'm dealing with? It'll take you an entire day to redefine these things for people to see. All right, while we're waiting for that to happen, let's take a real quick break. So you guys get the idea. It's no mystery here. And honestly, frankly, for me, it's not really a surprise. It is. One thing that surprises me a little bit is that there has been significant resources dedicated to Iowa on behalf of the DeSantis campaign. And I would have thought that if I was to poll anywhere and outside of Florida and found DeSantis somewhere around 30%, it should and better be for him, for his sake, the state of Iowa. Because I did want to talk about this too. We're running out of time so quick. Harry Enton had a great article. It's true. About how New Hampshire is more fertile ground for people who want to oppose Trump. That's not true, but not true. Trump is doing better with self-identified conservatives, especially very conservatives, which is hurting other candidates in a state like Iowa. That's true. But the problem for people who want to take him on in New Hampshire is that there are just We saw this in 16. And by the way, in 20, where they tried to mount an issue, he broke records. If you're going to challenge a sitting president, the state of New Hampshire is historically the state that you're going to want to do that because they have a very independent-minded streak, right? Anyway, he wound up setting records for it, and that's because he appeals to this, especially, again, prime working age, younger vote, that is a working class vote, but yet they call themselves moderates and even independents. But that group I was just telling you about, they also make more than in Iowa. But that's the problem these candidates are going to run into against Trump. He does so much better among those $100,000 to $200,000 a year middle-aged moderates. He just does better with them. Just pull yourself up by the bootstrap kind of voter, salt of the earth kind of person. All right, let's take a real quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about this and also the endorsement developments, which are significant. It's just no other way to spin it. Look, folks, authorities absolutely do fear that extremists are targeting the U.S. power grid. Article in Time magazine just 2 months ago. Now, it's not coming from People's Pundit or Breitbart. But it doesn't even matter. Could be a weather event. Could be the total incompetence of our political class. If just 9 key substations would go down, and it's not as much as you think, it would knock out power across the country for up to 18 months. That's why you need a solar generator. And the new Patriot Power Generator 2000X is portable, but it's powerful enough for your phones, medical devices, even your refrigerator. And right now, you can go to 4patriots.com and get one if you use the promo code TPP10 at checkout to get 10% right off the bat. This code is, of course, for your first purchase only, so make it count with like a purchase like the Patriot Power Generator. Again, it's 4patriots.com. Use the promo code TPP10 at checkout and get one today. They're also running this great new deal this month, folks, where they're giving a great deal with added pounds. And it's a great deal to take advantage of. All right, let me also, real quick, before we get back to our regular schedule program, tell you about this great deal from our friends at Jam and Bean, Patriot-owned, Michigan-proud artists in the form of coffee roasting. Set up a new subscription today, whether it's for coffee, K-Cups, freshly roasted, whatever your little heart desires. One of their gourmet popcorn, which is delicious. Just use the promo code TPP40 at checkout to get 40% off. 40 right off the bat, off your first fee on your subscription, on your new subscription, and you will still get 10% off every month on your subsequent renewals. Again, jamandbean.com, Jamn bean.com. Use the promo code TPP40 at checkout when you sign up for a new subscription. And of course, folks, we always want to hear about it. So, don't forget to send us your feedback. All right. So, look, I'll be honest a little bit here. A little bit surprised in the wee hours of the morning when I get this message from someone on Twitter. He's like, look, this is already confirmed. It's done. It's real. It's happening. Trump got the entire delegation in the state of Michigan. And let me put this up so you guys can see who it is. Because one, I was a little bit surprised with. Little bit surprised. Here we are. This is the Trump 2024 Michigan Federal Leadership Team. And I'm using this to make a point. Let me take a sip of water. Bear with me. Because as much as I hate to say it, 538 is right with the point system that they give to endorsements. And I never like saying that 5 turd fake is right about anything. But they are right about this. All campaigns want to tout whatever endorsements they get, folks. But here's the truth. If you believe in the research of like the party decides, which was kind of seminal research in the 90s, and it really looks at a very long historical record. Or even if you just take a look yourself at the empirical record, the historical record, see, empirically whether or not endorsements have impact. you will see very quickly that the truth is only statewide and national offices carry a lot of weight when it comes to endorsements. And usually when you hit that 60 total endorsement threshold, historically, you're in real good shape to secure the nomination. That means U.S. representatives, U.S. senators, and governors. And as it stands right now, Trump has 2-1 over DeSantis on gubernatorial endorsements, governors, 10-0 in the U.S. Senate with the aid of Steve Daines, who is, of course, from Montana and runs the Republican committee to elect senators. And in the House of Representatives, with these 6 new endorsements, we're now up to 67-5. This is the entire Republican delegation in the state of Michigan, which, by the way, is now the second. Well, he almost got every single one in the state of Florida, almost. But he got, I think, all but one in Florida. Congressman Tim Walberg, U.S. Representative from the 5th District in Michigan. Bill Huizenga, which surprised me a little bit. Michigan's 4th Congressional District. You have Jack Bergman, Lisa McClain, and John James, of course, in the 10th, new addition, who ran for Senate in 2020 and damn near won. Just these endorsements alone means that Donald Trump has more House endorsements in the state of Michigan alone than Ron DeSantis has in all 50 states from the House of Representatives. 67-5. If it was just these endorsements from Michigan alone, Trump would still be leading him 6-5. It's a big deal. If you look at the endorsement spread, there are a lot of people who track it. Ballotpedia tracks it. They do a good job. They don't score it. There's a reason why 538 scores them and gives them. So that's what I said before is why you'll see these like bubble charts. All right. And other things to represent the weight that it's not just how many endorsements did you get, because you could rack up a bunch of state legislator endorsements, mayoral endorsements. And the truth of the matter is that barring something like a Rudy Giuliani post 9/11 mayoral type endorsement, endorsements really don't move the needle at the local level. They just don't. Even if some of those people who are doing the endorsing have for themselves local get out the vote infrastructure. It really comes down to congressional districts, statewide races like the Senate that are nationally held offices, and of course gubernatorial elections do as well. But why do the House and the Senate matter so much? For the same reason why I tell you gubernatorial elections do not have predictive value in a presidential cycle. Just because Mitt Romney won the state of Massachusetts to be the governor as a Republican does not mean he was going to be competitive against Barack Obama in the state of Massachusetts. Just because Larry Hogan was a popular Republican governor in the state of Maryland does not mean that Larry Hogan would be competitive against any Democrat in a presidential race in his own home state of Maryland. And you can go on, and it flips both ways. Doug Bradenson, just because he was a popular Democratic governor, did not mean that he was going to give Marsha Blackburn a run for her money. Those things were never going to happen. Not in today's political era where the partisan voting index is just so strict for presidential and nationally held offices. You can see a Democrat win a gubernatorial election in a deeply red state when it comes to the president and the Senate. Louisiana, John Bel Edwards. Cooper in North Carolina, reelected, even though Donald Trump and Tom Tillis both carried the state. And that's a battleground considered still. On and on and on and on. We see Democrats winning in the plain states, Kansas, sometimes even in the Dakotas. That does not mean that if any of them would run for president and secure the Democratic nomination, they would put Kansas in play. The same thing goes for endorsements. It gives me a headache sometimes to watch. Oh, look at this state one. Look at that state one. Doesn't really matter. Now, there were some narrative wins for the Trump team when it came to state legislators. For instance, wait until we announce, wait until we announce, wait until he announces. Then he announces, it's a total disaster, and you actually lose endorsements. They rescind and endorse your opponent because your announcement was so bad. And that is, of course, in the first primary in the nation, state of New Hampshire, where Ron DeSantis lost a straight-up endorsement and went just to Trump, and then a split endorsement revoked her endorsement of Ron DeSantis and said, I am now solely in for Donald Trump. It's not that those offices carry a lot of weight. And they bear, they score high on, on the point scale at 538. It's because of it just looks so bad. But for the most part, that's why you'll only see Ballotpedia put up the House, the Senate, and yes, governorships do matter. They just don't matter as much. House and Senate endorsements are major. Major. So this is a big deal. Anyone who's trying to spin it like it's not is full of crap. This is a very, very big deal. Let me just read you also why is it a big deal? Because if you're going to have an issue with the party in the state of Michigan, then that's a state where you can have conceivably a process primary get out of control. Why? There are 10 at-large delegates out of the 55 total delegates in the state of Michigan that are bound to the statewide winner of the primary. 10 out of the 55 total that are bound to the winner of the primary. The caucuses then conduct a presidential preference poll to allocate 39 additional delegates on March 2nd. And by the way, what I just mentioned first, it's on February 27th. 3 district delegates are bound to the winner in each district. How 3 bonus delegates are allocated is unclear, still as of now, even though their primary is set for late February, and then their caucuses will conduct a presidential preference poll on March 2nd. So if you don't have nationally held offices behind you in the state, you could conceivably see a process, a system, a hybrid split kind of primary caucus system. You could conceivably see this get out of control quickly. Michigan's got 55 delegates. Behind only Tennessee. It's the 5th largest. From January 22nd, when Iowa holds its caucuses, to March 5th, where Super Tuesday has, of course, all those states. 13 states or whatever. I think I said 15 before. It's 13. So, big deal. It is a big deal. It matters. Spinning is futile. It's a big deal. Let's see if I want to check our, it's here. It is here. It is here. Let's check our white detail for Iowa, which we asked because not only can overall results foreshadow someone's strength in the Rust Belt, but when you look at ethnic origin, obviously white ethnic origin in the Rust Belt is especially important. You can see whether or not somebody's going to have some significant strength, okay? Obviously, some of these sample sizes are very small. Dutch is obviously good from states like Pennsylvania. German is one of the biggest. It is the biggest block in Iowa. 43.4 to 22.5. That's actually not a bad sign for DeSantis. Unfortunately, the English, which is really English American, is 51 to 15. which is also another very large block in the state of Iowa. And of course, you can see Norwegians, and a lot of it's just so little, it's really hard to tell. Irish, Italians, such small sample sizes, it's really difficult to infer anything. You could categorize them by like Scandinavian areas, like Swedish, Norwegian. You could do something like that. And Danish, you could put them together and see what, that subsample would be. But for the most part, it's Iowa, and we're looking at English, and we're looking at German. German number, tempted to say, it's not bad for DeSantis, but it's not good. It's not good. And getting crushed like this among, those who characterize themselves as English descent, that's a group, if you followed our polling in 2020, that's a group that Trump really did struggle with against Biden. He did so well with them against Hillary Clinton in the Rust Belt. But if you identified as like, I'm English and I'm an American descent, I'm English descent, if white voters identified as such, then parts of Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Trump was having problems with them. Not, he was winning them. He just was not winning them at the margin. He was winning them against Hillary Clinton. And the question was whether or not newfound support among non-white voters, especially black voters in states like Pennsylvania and Michigan, would be able to offset some of that loss. I think at the end of the day, I don't know how you could really conceivably make the case somebody lost voters when they added millions more to their total vote from the prior election, but you see my point. So it does foreshadow whether or not, or forecast whether somebody has some strength in certain states. I wish it was a state where there was a little bit more Norwegian. If you were to poll Minnesota, you're going to get a lot more Swedes and Scandinavians in general. But if you poll like Wisconsin, you're going to get a lot more Norwegians. And it tells you a lot about whether or not are we headed for a big, could there be a big polling error here? Because some of these subgroups just didn't participate. And, if you poll Pennsylvania and like 60% tell you they're English, you got a problem. You probably polled Delco and Montgomery and Delaware a little bit too much. If it's not Italian enough, did you miss Bucks? It's not Dutch enough. Did you miss Dutch country? Are you blending Dutch country with southeastern Pennsylvania? Because if you are, you're going to mess up. So there you have it. God, an hour goes by so damn quick. I want to get to the bottom of this, though, so we can get this out to you guys. And that's my priority today. So we did have a shorter Inside the Numbers, but it had to be called Inside the Numbers because, of course, we were looking inside the numbers. Big takeaways. Trump's got a big lead with the evangelical caucus goers. He's got a big lead with first-time caucus goers, yet he still leads with routine caucus goers who have, history of caucus participation. What else? Massive. I wish I could show you. Let's see if I could just put education. Let's see how long it would take. If it pops up right away, then we'll hang tight. But it frankly may not. Let's go down to education. Throw it in there. Let's see if we can close the editor anytime soon. Maybe not. I'm willing to give it a second just to see. Because you really have to see these numbers. You got to see these numbers. Education's a big deal. I may have penned this a little bit, by the way. It is possible some, may trickle in, but I had to close it out. It was starting to really slow down. If I do, you'll see maybe it's like an added 5 responses or something. All right. That's it. We're almost there. Give it time. I got to switch these around. But you can get an idea of how long this would take. Oh my God. This Pride Month, that Pride Month. Last month's LGBTQ Pride Month. This month is this Pride. Can't we just always have Pride? Do we really have to single it out like this every month? Is there no month that just isn't dedicated to something anymore? I'm serious. What about Children with Cancer Month? Donate to Cancer Research Month. Why do we have to always look at, like, I don't want to say fake victims, but I want to say fake victims. Why do we always have to do that? Why can't we look at real victims, like young children who, no fault of their own, contracted terrible diseases? And actually, Trump's lead increased quite a bit here, actually. Increased here quite a little bit. But came down a little bit here. So Trump leads among those who have, high school or less, 64 to 15, or 63.5 to 15.7. That changed a little bit. Some college associate, Trump leads 52.8 to 22.4. A bachelor's degree or a 4-year degree, 44.3 to 17.3. And again, even if, and who is this here? Believe that's our man Vivek. Nope, that's Tim Scott. All right, so Tim Scott is actually taking quite a bit of the educated vote away from Ron DeSantis. You could see, DeSantis' post-grad did tick up a little bit. So 29 and 24 now. So now DeSantis leads by 5. That's why I always like to wait until we get total weights in there. But DeSantis at this point is leading 28.6 to 24.1 among those who have an advanced degree or post-grad degree. But Tim Scott's taking 17.3% of that. Still, nevertheless, you can see the size of the electorates here. Proportionately lucky. It's usually, I think we have advanced like 13%. Bachelor's 4-year. It's a nice chunk. Trump still leads them. And considering how many you still have that are out there undecided at 7.2, this is why it would be so hard to change. Look at how some college and associates, they're almost totally decided, but they're a bigger group. So it's still, about the same size as everyone else. Same thing goes with high school or less. Trump has this huge lead and still almost 10% are undecided. And actually, because of the size of the group compared to other education demographics, this 9.5% is about the same size as the 17.8% of advanced postgrad. So even if all of these postgrads went to Ron DeSantis, Trump could win like a little bit more than a majority, and you can't catch him. You have to change these people's minds. Their minds have got to change. And you cannot lose a 4-year degree demographic to Donald Trump and beat Donald Trump in a primary. You can't, because he's going to win these other voters, and he's going to win them substantially. You're not going to touch him with these guys and these men and women. You're not going to touch him here. He's going to dominate. So even though he's not at a majority, he's still got a pretty healthy lead among 4-year degrees. And he's not being dominated with advanced and post grads. They're being split. They're not all sold on DeSantis. They're not. Bad position for DeSantis to be in. I just don't see where he goes from here. All right, looks like we have not changed the thing yet. I was waiting for locals to do it. So again, sign up for locals now. You sign up, I poll. That's the deal. That's the contract we got over there together, folks. You sign up, I poll. And do it while you can. Get grandfathered in. There's also the new chat function where you can send me direct messages. I've responded to basically everybody already. And if I did miss you, you'll hear back from me soon. So pretty cool feature where you don't have to post publicly on the board. You can just hit me up, instant message, or direct message, and we can have, a little bit more detailed or even, Q&As back and forth. I'll do my best to answer them, as always. Somebody did ask a question in locals earlier in the thing that said I hadn't planned on taking questions, but somebody asked a great question on locals about higher turnout elections where Republicans without Trump on the ballot did a little better. In 2004, there was what you could consider to be a higher than expected turnout, although it was still not a great turn, not like we see in the modern era. And Democrats thought they had won it because of that. And at the end of the day, there were a bunch of registered Democrats who had not changed their registration. that really took a lot of Democrats off guard in states like Ohio and in Florida, and that helped Bush get reelected. Iowa too, by the way. That was done largely on the Value Voter Initiative, which Karl Rove at that time, it was a smart play. Two things Karl Rove did smart in that election. One was use the advantages of incumbency laws, where you can attack and define your opponent before an opponent can respond. If you are an incumbent, you can beat your opponent over the head before he can legally respond. That's the damage that a prolonged primary did to John Kerry. And while they were still duking it out in the spring and they were waiting to nominate John Kerry, the Bush campaign was painting him as a Northeastern liberal, swift boater, killer of Vietnamese women and children, and then coming back to the United States pretending to be on like Jane Fonda's side. It was brutal. That's the first thing they did smart. And the second thing they did smart was use the value voter initiatives. Statewide referendums that were about gay marriage, abortions, things like that. And that was a way to drive out evangelical and culturally conservative voters, even Democrats that may have been voting Democrat for a while, but did not agree with Democrats on those issues. And then because there were national security concerns, gave Bush their vote. That's really the one and only, because you meant that comment, or really the question specifically remarked after Reagan and the post-Reagan. And other than that, that's it. They won because of low turnout. Republicans forgot before Donald Trump they were losers. And the blaming of Trump for 18 and 22 and 20 masked the real truth, which is that they're a bunch of losers who can't get people out because nobody likes them and nobody trusts them. They'd rather vote for Democrats. Many of these people would rather vote for Democrats. At least Democrats will throw them a bone. At least Democrats will stay out of their bedroom. You know? And that's the world we live in. So the answer to that is maybe 04. But I don't even know if that's a great example, because we're only talking about 3.5 million more votes. That's it. That's really it. That people didn't expect. It's not a whole lot. Unless you're Mitt Romney and you're missing 3.5 million in the Rust Belt to even be competitive, and you go down in 2 seconds, even though your pollster, who now works for Ron DeSantis, told you were going to win. Anywho, see you on Friday. David Giglio will be here. Don't forget what I said about the California GOP. If you don't like it, make a stink. And we will see you at noon Eastern Standard Time inside the numbers. Keep an eye out, especially locals, for those crosstabs. I'll make it work. I'll get them up there. All the best, folks. Stay cool. Stay safe. Nothing but deuces for you.